Everywhere you look, there's stuff. Stuff of value. Things that can be taken.
Not in this room.
Not in
Okay. Well, actually, I mean, I got some pricey D&D stuff in here.
Yeah. And when you look at the world strictly in terms of things that have value, things that could be taken, maybe. Who is this world truly for?
Thieves.
It's for thieves. So true. And today, we're going to be capitalizing on this idea and discussing Robert L. Asprin's Thieves World.
Thieves World.
Thieves World. Here we go.
Let's do it.
Now I've heard, correct me if I'm wrong, that Thieves World is a complete Sanctuary adventure pack. AD&D adventures in fantasy, chivalry, and sorcery, Dragon Quest D&D, the Fantasy Trip, Rune Quest, Traveler, and Tunnels and Trolls role-playing systems. Am I correct in that assumption?
Yeah, in the awkward way that you did it, you are correct.
I am.
Yeah. Thieves World. Let's talk Thieves. I don't even know why I have him along half the time. Thieves World. This is something that I only recently picked up and I've wanted it for a very, very long time. Mm-hmm. Back in the day, there was an author by the name of Robert Asprin. And Robert Asprin, he was very successful. He wrote the Thieves World series, or I guess you could say that he was co-writer of the Thieves World series. He also wrote I want to say it was the Myth Conception series. It was all play on words with myths, and those were very successful as well. And I'm reading a book right now. It involves time travel. And they're slightly humorous, but also just a lot of fun to read. The one that I'm reading by Robert Asprin, and I think he had a co-writer by the name of might have been Lynn Abbey or Lynn Anderson. I'm not exactly sure. Anyway, in that one, there have been rifts in time, and people can go back and they can basically be tourists in the past. Fun book, but. Robert Asprin. My point being that he was pretty successful, and he wrote a pretty wide. He covered a wide series of genres in terms of his fantasy and science fiction writing. Back in, I want to say it was 1978, Robert Asprin, however, came up with the idea that it might be fun to create a setting and let multiple authors contribute to that setting. So they would all write their own stories, but they would place those stories in the world in which Robert Asprin's original characters operated. And the result was a series called Thieves World, centered on a city known as Sanctuary. And I have recently started rereading the Thieves World books, and I had completely forgotten I'd read them, actually. But I must have read them probably back in the 90s, and I picked them up here recently at the library and started reading them again. I thought, wait, I've already read this. They still hold up.
Nice.
They're still really, really good, really interesting books.
That's good.
Anyway, in 1981, I believe it was, Chaosium, they decided that they would create a Thieves World setting for role-playing games. A supplement for role-playing games. And that is exactly what they did. And the result was this boxed set called Thieves World, oddly enough. And as I said, I got a copy of this fairly recently, and it is great. I really, really enjoy what they did.
It is very cool.
Just to pass on to you, the Thieves World supplement won the Best Role-Playing Adventure. It won the H.G. Wells Award. It won the Strategists Club Award, and it won the Game Designers Guild Select Award back at the time that it was published. And it's pretty easy to see why. Now, what's included in this box? There are some really neat things in here. And we're going to go through them right now.
Indeed we are.
I was lucky enough to get a copy of this box set that was in very good shape. It still has the Chaosium catalog from 1982. This is the winter catalog from 1982. A fun thing to go through. But there are also, as I said, the Thieves World setting is a place by the name of Sanctuary. And so you get in this a very well-made map of the city of Sanctuary. And then there are a series of tables within some of the booklets that come along with this that help you to flesh out the city as you see fit. You can do it by hand, or you can do random rolls off of a table, and you can figure out where the goldsmiths is. You can figure out where the armorer is, that kind of thing, where Armorer's Row is, whatever else. But this is very, very similar to the way I imagine Sanctuary to be from the books.
Yeah.
But this is the primary book. This is a primary map. But going along with that are maps of the maze, which is like the dangerous place within Sanctuary. And then you can, as with the main map, you can put in where you want everything to be, with the exception of the Vulgar Unicorn, which is like the primary location for thieves and people to meet and do their nefarious things. The Vulgar Unicorn is marked here on the map. But then you also get the maze underground. So this is everything in the sewers and the underground buildings in the maze itself. And again, really cool that you can lay out all of these different things and say what's what and where's where and tailor it to your own individual campaign.
Yeah.
Now, also in this wonderful supplement, there is the Game Master's Guide for Sanctuary. And there are a lot of people contributed to this. The cool thing about it is that it gives you encounters based on the time of day. So you can have general city encounters. You can have specific encounters. You can have general city encounters on major streets in the day, the evening, or the night, or on the minor streets in the day, the evening, and the night. And then they have the city divided up into different sections that follow the books, the Thieves World books. So you've got the Jeweler's Quarter, you've got the Processional Quarter, you've got the Processional, you have the west side of the city. Then you have all kinds of things that are sub-encounters where you've got party of armed men that you run into. Okay, well, how are they going to act? That's all in here as well on these different charts. This goes on and on. This is probably 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's about 10 pages of different encounters that you can do.
That's cool.
Then you get into the special area encounters. So you have a special encounter table for the maze, which is the dangerous part of town. You have the Street of Red Lanterns. There are specific encounters that you will have there. There's encounters in the Bazaar. The Bazaar is an area that is exactly what it sounds like, a place where you can go and get just about anything. It's run by a group of people who are slightly different, not quite genetically related to the people who later came in and took over Sanctuary. They're an older people, and they deal with more magic and things like that.
Cool. Fascinating
group of characters found in there. And then there's the area in Downwind, which is the really poor section. And then, like I said, there are all kinds of different things here for populating Sanctuary with businesses. There is a cutaway of how Sanctuary should look, give you an idea of, height levels, what's underneath, what's up above, that kind of thing. And then there are area tables. There are places and plans where you can actually have a blown up version of areas within the Jeweler's Quarters. You can have an area that is a blown up section of the Processional Quarter. They call it Processional. And then you have a blown up area for the west side of Sanctuary, but they call it west side of Sanctuary, but they call it West Side. And then they have a blown up area for the section of the maze. They have a blown up area for the section of the Street of the Red Lanterns, etc., etc. But huge amounts of detail for this city. But that's not all you get.
That's not all, folks.
You also get the Player's Guide to Sanctuary. And I love this because, like we said before, this is the Game Master's Guide. So whoever's running the game is going to have access to all this information. But this Player's Guide to Sanctuary, this is the information that you give to your players so that they have some background history of what's been happening here. And this all comes directly out of the books that were developed by Robert Asprin and others.
Cool.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I love reading through this because as I have been reading through this and rereading the Thieves World novels at the same time, it's really neat to see a certain character from the book suddenly brought to life in the terms of a role-playing game.
Yeah.
So anyway, really interesting stuff, and it gives you the things on the religions that are found in Sanctuary and so on. There's also, in this box, I was lucky enough to get it, the listing of contents. But then, and this is where things are, I think they really took this to another level, Chaosium did. This is the Personalities of Sanctuary booklet. And the contributors to this, again, like I said, there were a lot of authors who created things that were set in Thieves World that was created by Robert Asprin. This includes people like Dave Arneson, Wes Ives, let's see, Steve Perrin. I'm just giving you the ones that I'm relatively familiar with. Ken St. Andre, Greg Stafford. All of these people contributed characters to this Personalities of Sanctuary. But it gets better. So you have all of these different individuals that are talked about in the books. They are listed here on these sheets. But then when you get to the actual statistics of each of those characters, they have given you the character statistics for Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. They have given that, so it's got, for instance, strength, intelligence, wisdom, dexterity, constitution, charisma, armor class, movement, hit points, number of attacks, etc., etc. They've also given you these characteristics to fit into a game called Adventures in Fantasy, which was put out by Adventure Games. Dave Arneson was part of that. Then they have Chivalry and Sorcery. That is another game, an RPG game that was popular at the time that this was created. So they've got all the characteristics and statistics that slot into that game. Same characters, same personalities, just in different game systems.
Yeah.
They also include systems for Dragon Quest. They also include the statistics for these characters for Dragon Quest. And for basic Dungeons and Dragons, Steve Marsh did the work on that. And then they have the Fantasy Trip. And I'm not very familiar with the Fantasy Trip. I've had a bunch of people send in things based on our podcast when we talked about this.
Yeah.
So I'm becoming more familiar with it. But they've got all the stats for putting these characters into the Fantasy Trip. They've got the stats for putting them into RuneQuest. They've got the stats for putting them into Traveler. And they've got the stats for putting them into Tunnels and Trolls. And they've got the stats. That's all. That's all there is.
Wow.
Anyway, in terms of them trying to make Thieves World, this Thieves World module, appealing to everybody who was playing an RPG at the time, they managed to accomplish quite a bit of that. But that, even though that's really cool, the best part about this is just the detail on the maps, the detail on the characters, the way that you can flesh Sanctuary out. I have already taken this and dropped Sanctuary into my campaign. It doesn't, the macro information has been changed for me to accommodate it in my campaign. But the city of Sanctuary itself, it slotted right in. And it's a really, really fantastic set.
Well, it's just a cool resource because this does... I always go back and forth with these big, ambitious supplements because sometimes they introduce a lot of required rules that kind of change the way you play the game. This doesn't seem to do that at all.
No.
It's just, here's this cool world that we've built. They've done probably the hardest part of D&D for you. Not everybody's going to want to go and create some massive city with all these details and cliques and groups of people that do things because that's really time-consuming and difficult. So they've done that for you. And especially if you like the books, if this is something you have previous experience with, I think this is awesome. I think it's really, really cool. It's great work. And like you say, you can chuck however much of it you want. You can use however much of it you want. Drop it in somewhere and then just have your players go and visit it. All the stuff is already done for you, and it's a really neat fantasy setting that seems very classic D&D.
It really is. And the thing that I think back in the day, this came out in, I want to say that it first came out in 1981.
Yeah.
I'm almost positive that was when it was released. Yeah, there was a copyright in there for 1981. But this is when Thieves World was really kind of getting its feet under it, and it was a very popular series to read at that time. And so it's, they had a ready-built audience by doing this way. But I don't think that it's lost any of its applicability to gaming by this time. Here, 40 years later, this is still an excellently made supplement for Dungeons and Dragons or any role-playing game system that you want to put your money toward.
No, very much so.
But if you can find a copy of this, and they aren't cheap, but if you can find a copy of this, or if you can find some PDFs, and I don't know if there are PDFs available on Drive-Thru RPG or someplace like that, take a look, because this is if you're looking for a city setting, this is something that you might want to consider putting into your campaign. And there's a gritty feel to Thieves World. There's a deadly, dangerous side to it that fits perfectly for my campaign. So, really glad to have picked this up. And, I mean, I knew about Thieves World, the books, did not know that this existed until just a short time ago.
Yeah.
So.
No, this is really, really cool. And I'm excited to hopefully visit it at some point, because I'd like to... I'm not going to look through this too much, because I'd like to be able to explore it and kind of figure it out for myself.
Right.
Yeah. No, this is really, really neat.
So, we just thought that you might be interested in seeing my most recent purchase, which is Robert Asprin's Thieves World supplement, put out by Chaosium back in 1981.
Indeed.
Other things going on with us. We want to thank again the people who supported our most recent Kickstarter, Forest of Moon Denizens. We over-made it, and we were funded to about 300 and almost 400%. I think
we passed 400%.
It was a big number. So thank you to all of you who supported that. Yeah. By the time this video comes out, you will probably have received your bestiary from Forest of Moon.
To our Patreon subscribers, our Patreon patrons, I guess is the proper term, thank you all so much. If you're interested in becoming one of our patrons on Patreon, follow the link down in the description below. You'll get some free extra content that we put together. Well, not free extra content. We get extra content that we put together and make just for all you guys on there. We are going to start doing this. Here are our Patreon patrons.
Here, Patreon supporter Patreons, right here.
You are the best. Yep. If you want to be included in that list, just follow the link below.
Or if you just enjoyed this particular video but you don't want to become a patron, you can also buy us a coffee over on the coffee website. There'll be a link for that in the description.
So thank you all so much.
Thanks for stopping by, guys. I'm Jim.
I'm Alex.
Keep short on free.
Bye-bye.